This video is for mile marker 2, practice 1, question 8. In question 8, we are instructed to use the two transformations below to create the compound transformation. Label the image of triangle ABC. A compound transformation is when there are multiple transformations to get the final image. So a common mistake that people make here is that they perform both the first and the second transformation on the original pre-image, triangle ABC, but instead we're going to first reflect it in the y-axis, then with the image we get from that, we're going to rotate it 90 degrees clockwise about 0, 0, or the origin. So we're actually going to get a final image that's based on the first step. Okay, so let's start. You've got to do these in order. So let's start with the reflection. So again, we've gone over reflections already, so I won't go into too much detail, but do keep in mind it matters which axis. So we're given the y-axis. So if we go ahead and reflect this, remember a point that lies on the line of reflection, so in this case C, it's not going to move when you do that reflection. So C doesn't move at all. But if we look, B is going to move horizontally. So if B is 2 units from that y-axis, we're going to move 2 to the other side. And A is 1, 2, 3, 4 units. So we're going to keep going 1, 2, 3, 4 units to the other side. So when we label these, let's see, sorry, can't talk and write at the same time. All right, I know that doesn't look spectacular, but it really just matters that we know where those 3 points are. So, all right, so this is our image, A prime, B prime, C prime. So we've done the first step. So now when we do our rotation, we're going to base it off of the triangle that we just created in step 1. All right, so this is the first, for this mile marker practice anyways, this is the first clockwise rotation we've had. So remember that when we're going clockwise, that is the direction of the hands of the clock. So if this is quadrant 1, and I rotate something clockwise, if it's in quadrant 1, it should end up in quadrant 4. So you'll know you've made a mistake if it ends up in either quadrant 2 or quadrant 3. All right, so there's a lot of different ways we can complete this rotation. I've gone into pretty thorough detail about some of them in earlier lessons. I'm going to just do the right triangle method, or legs of a right triangle method, I should say. So if we look, point C is going to be the easiest one because it's on the y-axis. So when we rotate it 90 degrees, it's going to end up on the x-axis. You always want to start with a point on the axis if you have one. So C prime is going to end up here. All right, then it doesn't really matter if we do A or B next. I'm just going to do A since, why not? All right, so to get to A, I'm going to trace the vertical change and the horizontal change. So I'm not going to consider it diagonally, but I'm looking for vertical and horizontal change. So I can see I'm going up 2 units on the Y, and then over 1, 2, 3, 4 units in the horizontal direction to the right. So if I imagine when I flip that, or sorry, not flip that, when I rotate that, the distance I went up on the Y will now be distance that I move on the x-axis. So I'm going to go 2, and then I'm going to go over, or in this case down, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I can see that A prime is going to end up right here. Lastly, I can do the same thing with B prime. So for B prime, I went up 1, 2, 3, 4 on the y-axis and over 2. So now my y direction becomes my x direction. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 on the x and down 1, 2. All right, so that's going to give me, we said this is A prime. I probably should have been labeling these as I go so we don't get confused in the end. We've got A prime, B prime, C prime. And you know what? I'm actually going to use double primes here since it's the second image of two different transformations. If you're confused by that method of rotating the triangle, on the next slide, I'm going to show you using the method where you actually rotate your paper instead. A lot of people prefer that method. This final method of rotating the triangle involves rotating your paper instead. So I've gone over this method in previous videos, but remember, first of all, it's important that we know that we're going 90 degrees clockwise. And this really only works with intervals of 90 degrees, or is only easy to do, I should say. So we are looking at our slides from the last from the last slide, our images from the last slide. We've already performed the reflection, so we're not going to worry about redoing the reflection. But what we are going to do, and you can do this with me, is take your paper and rotate it 90 degrees clockwise. And it's easy for me to do if I've got two images up here, but for you at home, you're probably going to want to write these down. So when we complete that rotation, this triangle is now exactly where we're going to expect the image of this triangle to be when we've done the rotation. So what we can go ahead and do is write down those ordered pairs. So we're going to pretend that this is the x-axis and this is the y, even though it wasn't originally. But when we rotate it, that'll be our x-axis. So we can note that A prime is located at 2, -4. Oops, that's supposed to be a negative. B prime is at 4, -2. And you know, I'm going to go back and call these double primes because we're performing two transformations. So B prime is at 4, -2. And then C prime, or double prime, is at 1, 0. All right, so then when we go to graph this over here, we're just going to plot those points at those coordinates. So this will be C double prime at 1, 0. A double prime, we said, is at 2, -4. So it should be right there. And B double prime at 4, -2. And then our last step is to just connect those triangles. Oops, connect those points rather. Well, I'm having a hard time. All right, when you are completing this problem on the mile marker, it's not necessary to go back and erase the first triangle. Once you've got your second image, you're done.